On March 25th of 2015, Zayn made an announcement that he would be leaving boy band One Direction due to stress and the desire to live like a normal 22-year-old away from the spotlight. This seemed innocent enough until July, when it was announced that he had been signed to RCA Records and planned to record his own solo music, hinting that maybe his reason for leaving the group wasn't simply just to get out of the spotlight. Interestingly enough, he actually had a Twitter argument with former bandmate Louis Tomlinson only a few months after the split. After British producer Naughty Boy took a picture with Zayn in a studio, Louis fired shots at the producer saying, "Remember when you were 12 and you used to think those Mac filters for your pictures were cool? Haha, some people still do." After this, the two went into a back and forth on Twitter, where Louis accused the producer of riding on the back of Zayn's career. That's when Zayn jumped into the conversation, replying to Louis saying, "Remember when you had a life and stopped making comments about mine?" Since then, Zayn and Naughty Boy have had a falling out, and he and Louis still seem to have a shaky relationship even to this day. Anyways, aside from that bit of drama, it seemed like Zayn really only had nice things to say about the band, tweeting out support for their single Drag Me Down in August. However, this all changed in December when Zayn started doing his first public interview since the split.
I think I kind of always wanted to go, from the first year, really. I never really wanted to be there.
He said in an interview with Fader that he wouldn't listen to One Direction songs in a club as a 22-year-old man, calling the music generic as and said this in an interview with radio station Beats One. He's spoken further in other interviews about his lack of creative input on One Direction albums, mentioning in the Fader that if he sang a hook slightly R&B-esque, that he'd have to re-record it back 50 times until it sounded like straight pop. Luckily for Zayn, branching out into his own solo career allowed him to reach into that R&B influence and sound he had always wanted. After signing to RCA back in July, Zayn began hinting at new music and released his debut single Pillow Talk on July 29, 2016. This song absolutely exploded, debuting at #1 on Billboard, making Zayn the first UK artist to debut at #1 with a first charted single. Since its release, the song has achieved over 1 billion views on YouTube, over 1 billion streams on Spotify. It has been certified 5 times platinum. Critically, the song was also heavily praised for its soaring vocals and clean production brought by producer Levi Lennox. The huge success of the song ended up sparking a remix with Lil Wayne, released on February 26th. Now personally, I consider Pillow Talk to be the best song that Zayn's ever released, and it gave a lot of music critics and fans high hopes for his upcoming debut album, which was revealed to be named Mind of Mine. On this album, Zayn worked heavily with Grammy-winning producer James Ho, better known as Malay, a well-known R&B producer who's worked on iconic albums such as Evolver by John Legend and the critically acclaimed Channel Orange by Frank Ocean. Malay had a pretty big hand in producing Zayn's debut, having credits on 6 of his 14 songs and 2 of the 4 deluxe edition tracks. Another producer featured heavily on the album is someone called XYZ, who has credits on 7 of the songs, but whose identity was unknown. Some speculated that it's Zayn himself, although his management denied these claims, while others wondered if it was a close personal friend of Zayn. Eventually though, we would figure out the mystery. It turns out XYZ was an alias for a London-based producing group named Saltwives, who would continue to work with Zayn throughout the rest of his career. On the writing side of things, Zayn had a heavy hand with writing credits on every single song on the album. He took a lot of inspiration from some of his favorite childhood artists, citing people like Usher, Michael Jackson, and R. Kelly. Leading up to the album's release, Zayn dropped the promotional single It's You on February 25th. It's you. A few days after performing the song live on The Tonight Show with Jimmy Fallon. This song is definitely in the top 5 of all the songs Zayn's released. His high falsetto vocals in the chorus are very impressive and show how talented of a vocalist he really is. The second single, Like I Would, was released on March 10th. Although it only peaked at number 55 on Billboard, the song was praised for its catchy chorus and smooth dance party-esque production, making it very popular in club scenes. It's cold-hearted. No, it's lame, but I'm so wild. Weirdly enough, even though the song performed well, it was left off of the album and only included on the deluxe version. Speaking of the album, it was released 2 weeks after Like I Would, On March 25th, Mind of Mine charted extremely well, peaking at number 1 on Billboard, making Zayn the first UK male artist to debut at number 1 in the US and the UK with the debut single and debut album. Critically, the album was received well, with many praising his strong vocals and incredible range, as well as the alt R&B production style that Zayn really made his own. Really, I think the only issues with this album can be that a lot of the songs tend to sound very similar and kind of blend together, and lyrically, most of the songs on here are just talking about sex, a trend which Zayn would follow on a lot of his upcoming music as well. Overall though, I think this is a solid R&B album and solo debut for him, and other than the singles I already mentioned, some of my favorite songs in the project include Fool for You,
You know what I mean. When the dark turns to mist, I just can't resist it.
and Wrong featuring Kehlani, which would later be released as a single on July 7th.
Oh, when we're not on the same place, show me in the same light. Feels right when we take flight. Gloves off 'cause you're so
By the way, if you'd like to purchase Mind of Mine or any other albums I talk about in this video, the link for them is in the description. Any purchase you make using my link gets me a small commission, and it would really help me out. Anyways, on the same day as the album's release, Zayn did an album release show at the iHeartRadio Music Theater, one of the few live shows he'd do throughout his solo career. He was scheduled to perform 2 more shows in the coming months, one at the Summertime Ball in June and one in Dubai in October, but canceled both performances due to extreme anxiety, something he would continue to struggle with throughout the rest of his career. Moving to the end of 2016, Zayn's career would continue to find huge success, winning an American Music Award for Best New Artist, beating out other notable acts such as the Chainsmokers and Shawn Mendes, as well as releasing a self-titled memoir about his life after One Direction, and releasing one of his biggest songs to date, I Don't Wanna Live Forever, with Taylor Swift.
I'm sitting eyes wide open and I got one thing stuck in my mind. Wondering if I dodged a bullet or just lost the
Although it was originally just released for the 50 Shades Darker soundtrack, it became much larger than that, peaking at number 2 on Billboard and garnering over 1 billion Spotify streams at the time of recording this video. The song also gained the duo tons of critical acclaim, as well as numerous awards, including an MTV Video Music Award for Best Collaboration, an iHeartRadio Award for 1 billion spins, and even a Grammy nomination for Best Song Written for Visual Media, although they were beaten out by the song How Far I'll Go from the Moana soundtrack. Overall, for Zayn's first full year as a solo artist, I would say he did pretty well for himself with the #1 album, multiple wildly successful songs, and most importantly, he proved to the world that he was more than just a guy in a boy band. Unfortunately, the year wouldn't end on a completely positive note though, as on December 20th, Zayn announced the tour dates he had set for January of 2017 would be moved back to June instead, due to a change in the recording schedule of his new album. Many fans were left disappointed, but kept hope, as it was also announced that he had an extra show in Osaka due to the rescheduling. Moving into 2017, on March 23rd, Zayn released a new song titled Still Got Time, featuring Party Next Door.
Just stop looking for love, girl, you still got time.
Instead of being more R&B driven like his previous material, this song had much more of a dancehall pop focused sound, causing it to chart fairly poorly, only hitting number 66 on Billboard. Another reason for its lack of chart success was due to hardly no promotion for the song, a trend that would continue for the rest of Zayn's career. Along with the song's release, he also announced his second album with a release date set sometime in the summer of 2017. Unfortunately though, this release wouldn't happen, with the album being pushed back to September. Continuing through 2017, there would be even more bad news, with his previously rescheduled Japanese tour dates being cancelled only a few weeks before he was set to play due to another change in the recording schedule for his album. As the months came closer to September, there was still no new news regarding the album, and eventually it was announced that it was to be pushed back to sometime in 2018 due to delays in production. Fans wouldn't be completely starved of new music, however, as on September 8th he dropped the wildly successful song Dusk Till Dawn featuring Sia.
Go give love to your body, it's only you that can stop it. Go give love to your body, it's only you.
The song follows the same formula that many of his previous hits have, with slow R&B verses leading into an incredibly catchy and powerful pop chorus. Paired with Sia, who had already had many hits under her belt with songs like Chandelier and Unstoppable, The song became somewhat of a sleeper hit, only peaking at number 44 on Billboard, but becoming Zayn's most streamed song of his career with almost 2 billion views on YouTube and 1.3 billion streams on Spotify, surpassing both Pillow Talk and I Don't Want to Live Forever. Unfortunately for fans, this was the last single they'd get for the rest of the year, and for the majority of 2017, his focus seemed to be mainly on tending to his newly purchased farm in Pennsylvania, as well as progressing his fashion career. Throughout the year, he did multiple high-profile photo shoots for magazines like Billboard and Vogue, and even won an award for GQ's Most Stylish Man of the Year.
Hello to everyone there tonight. Sorry I can't be there. Massively honoured that I'm winning this award. Big thank you to GQ, big thank you to Hugo Boss, and hope everyone has a good time.
However, as you may know, I'm not a fashion channel, so let's get back into what you guys clicked on the video for, music. He did give fans a bit of an update in September of 2017 when he spoke to Fader magazine and revealed the record is almost finalized, but he was still changing a few things around here and there. He also told MTV in November that he was working with renowned hip-hop producer Timbaland for one of the songs on his upcoming project. Going into 2018, Zayn began posting song clips and poems onto his Instagram, hinting that fans could be receiving new music very soon. Throughout late March and early April, he continued to post teasers for the new music, this time posting video clips to his Instagram and Twitter, before eventually revealing a release date for a new song, set to release on April 12th. This song, titled Let Me, was subsequently released as the first single for his upcoming sophomore album. Unlike many of his previous songs, Let Me has a much more relaxed, chill production style and vocal delivery, with lyrics talking about taking care of his partner for the rest of their lives.
For the rest of my life, for the rest of yours.
Commercially, the song was a bit of a flop, only peaking at number 73 on Billboard due to poor promotion, but critically, the new style was reviewed fairly well, although Time magazine listed it as the 6th worst song of 2018, calling it forgettable and cringeworthy. The music video for the song actually follows a storyline started in the Dusk Till Dawn music video, which portrays Zayn as a drug dealer character constantly avoiding capture by the police and rival gangs. This storyline will be continued in his next single titled Entertainer, released just over a month after Let Me on May 23rd. Once again, the single performed extremely poorly, failing to even chart on Billboard. Part of this was due to poor promotion for the song, with only one teaser for it posted the day before the song came out, but another reason could be the loss of his longtime manager, Sarah Sinnen, who dropped the singer back in April, citing him difficult to work with due to his lack of promotion and touring for his music. Unfortunately, things wouldn't get better with the third single for the album, Sour Diesel, released on July 18th, performing even worse than Entertainer did. Even though the song flopped commercially, it was still highly praised by most critics for taking the risk of changing up his sound, with the song being much more funk rock as opposed to his usual more sensual R&B sound. Leading up to the album, Zayn would drop 3 more singles in the coming months. His long-awaited collaboration with Timbaland, Too Much, in August.
Found good but I feel bad. Think I know I can't take it back.
The slow jam, Fingers, in October. In his collaboration with Nicki Minaj, No Candle, No Light, in November.
Can't handle my love, can't handle your lies.
Sadly, none of these songs charted on the Billboard Hot 200, and while some of them did chart in other countries, most of the time they still performed poorly, only peaking around the 60 to 80 range, a disappointing number for someone with the talent and notoriety of Zayn. Shortly after No Candle, No Light was released, Zayn officially announced that his second studio album would be called Icarus Falls, with a set release date of December 14th. Just a day after the announcement, Zayn would surprise release a new single titled Rainberry, the first promotional single for the album, on November 30th.
Rainberry, please, you think I'm on my knees, but don't you worry.
Rainberry will be followed by 2 more promotional singles soon after. Good Years on December 6th, which some have speculated is about his time in One Direction.
My good years, oh my good years. The voice is screaming loud as hell.
And There You Are on December 11th, a touching song about his on-again, off-again girlfriend, Gigi Hadid.
They run like the river, but not you. Can't see.
Finally, after multiple delays and countless singles, Zayn's sophomore album Icarus Falls was officially released on December 14th. While it's technically a concept album themed around the classic tale of Icarus who flew too close to the sun and fell to his death, I don't really see it. The tracklist itself is absolutely massive, consisting of 27 songs split up into 2 parts using an interlude. Zayn has commented on the bloated tracklist, admitting that there are a few tracks on the album that were just leftover songs from Mind of Mine that didn't make the cut back then. Commercially, the album was a flop, only peaking at number 61 on Billboard and selling just under 1,400 copies, but critically it was actually reviewed fairly well. The only big criticism most people have with the album is the bloated hour-and-a-half runtime, as well as the half-hearted attempt at having it be a concept album. Looking at the positives though, the project is actually fairly enjoyable, with some of my personal standout tracks being Common. I think that song in particular is probably his most underrated song, and I would highly recommend giving it a listen if you haven't already. Anyways, for the most part, Zayn sounds super good on the album, and songs like Sour Diesel,
Spaceship so high, can't stop it. Like sour diesel.
show that he can make music outside of his comfort zone and still excel. The production is also excellent, with beats from a lot of the producers Zayn worked with on his previous album, including Malay, Salt Wives, and Make You Know Love. Overall, I think this album mainly suffers from a huge lack of promotion, as well as a feud with Zayn's label, who were unhappy with how many delays the album had, causing it to get pushed even less. After the album's release, Zayn talked about going on a whole tour for the project, although he never followed through with these plans, and for the next few months, things would stay pretty quiet on the music front. The first new taste of music from Zayn came in 2019, in May, when Zayn teamed up with Xavier Ward to release a cover of A Whole New World for the 2019 Aladdin live-action remake. The song did pretty well, receiving over 270 million views on YouTube at the time of recording this video, and Zayn's voice sounds great on the song as always. Throughout the rest of 2019, Zayn would stay pretty quiet musically, only featuring on 3 songs, one being Shade's smash hit single Trampoline in September,
Jumping on a trampoline.
Flipping in the air.
the second being Sabrina Claudio's song Rumors in October,
But you and me, how can we make this story end?
and finally his collaboration with Dutch producer Rehab and South African artist Jungle Boy in November.
If I go, let me go.
Although Trampoline turned out to be a pretty big hit, the other 2 songs performed fairly poorly, confirming that perhaps Zayn didn't have the star power he once possessed. Throughout 2020 and the pandemic, Zayn spent a lot of time out of the spotlight, focusing on family with the birth of his daughter, as well as continuing to write new music. He re-released Icarus Falls in August, adding Dusk Till Dawn, as well as Still Got Time to the track list. In September, however, he would release his first solo song in almost 2 years, titled Better, which would be the first single off of his next project. This song introduced a newer, more mellow version of Zayn, and he described the song as the music he's always wanted to make. Once again, he didn't do much promotion for the song, causing it to only peak at number 88 on Billboard, but overall, I think this was a great time for Zayn. He sounds much happier on this song, and finally being able to make the music he wanted to, after years and years of pressure from fans and the label, must have been an incredibly freeing feeling for him. Going into 2021, he announced that he would be dropping his 3rd album titled Nobody Is Listening on January 15th, as well as the second and final single for the project, Vibes, on January 9th. Vibes is a pretty good song following the slower R&B theme that Better had previously. Unfortunately though, it performed worse commercially, failing to even chart on the Billboard Hot 100. Less than a week after the release of Vibes, Zayn's 3rd and final studio album to date, Nobody Is Listening, was released. Unlike his previous project, this one is much shorter, containing only 11 songs and clocking in at 35 minutes. He also worked with completely different producers on this album, featuring a lot of smaller, less known acts, as well as bigger mainstream hip-hop producers like Charlie Handsome, who's worked with the likes of Juice WRLD and Kanye West, as well as Nicki Davy, a London duo who will produce for Beyonce. Commercially, nobody is listening to better than Icarus Falls, peaking at number 44 on Billboard, and critically it was reviewed very well, with some even calling this his best project to date due to how free he sounded on it. Moving on, for the rest of the year, he also featured on Ingrid Michaelson's song To Begin Again in March, a touching track about starting over in a relationship with someone you love.
Each other from so far away.
Unfortunately, following this release, things would begin going very downhill for Zayn later in the year. In October of 2021, an alleged altercation between Zayn and Gigi Hadid's mother Yolanda occurred, where he allegedly shoved Yolanda into a dresser and called her multiple names, as well as calling Gigi and telling her to, quote, strap on some f***ing balls and defend your partner against your f***ing mother in my house. He also allegedly tried to fight a security guard before shouting at him to, quote, get the f*** out of his house. Following this news, Zayn came out with a statement that read, as you all know, I am a private person and I very much want to create a safe and private space for my daughter to grow up in. A place where private family matters aren't thrown on the world stage for all to poke and pick apart. In an effort to protect that space for her, I agreed not to contest claims arising from an argument I had with a family member of my partner's who entered our home while my partner was away several weeks ago. This was and still should be a private matter, but it seems for now there is divisiveness, and despite my efforts for us to resort to a peaceful family environment that will allow me to co-parent my daughter in a manner in which she deserves, this has been leaked to the press. I am hopeful though for healing all who were involved with the harsh words shared, and more importantly, I remain vigilant to protect Kai and give her the privacy she deserves. He also spoke to TMZ where he, quote, adamantly denied striking Yolanda. Despite this, however, Zayn was still sentenced to a year of probation as well as mandatory completion of an anger management class and a domestic violence program. Things became even worse for him shortly after the incident, where it was announced that he would be dropped from his record label RCA due to a, quote, concern over his lifestyle after the incident, as well as the suspicion that the singer had been smoking weed. Duh. According to multiple sources, this decision wasn't new, and the label had, quote, quietly decided that it was the end of the line for the relationship, and they also stated that a lot of the people who have tried desperately to get Zayn's life and career back on track, but nothing has worked. So after this incredibly turbulent and controversial time, where is Zayn now? In the past years, he's been laying pretty low, working on his 4th studio album, as well as making headlines by posting short clips of him singing old One Direction songs on Instagram. In June of 2022, as well as a slow a cappella version of Night Changes in August.
Dreamed of disappearing when you wake up, but there's nothing to be afraid of, even when the night changes. It will never.
Could this mean that we could possibly be in store for a One Direction reunion sooner than we think? I guess we'll just have to wait and see, but if you like this video, make sure to leave a like and subscribe, and check out more videos coming soon. Have a good one.